Cubase and Nuendo offer many ways of taking MIDI information that are routed to virtual instruments and rendering it into audio that's incorporated into the main project window. The easiest way of doing this is to use the freeze function. So if we come over here, select an instrument track, select the very top icon in our track inspector, you'll see a little snowflake. Click on that snowflake, that will enable the freezing of the actual channel. So I could freeze the instrument only or freeze the instrument and channels. So now when I click OK, it's going to render the file in the background, and now we'll play back as an actual audio file behind the scenes, freeing up DSP resources and also freeing up computer processing power. To unfreeze the track, click on the icon again, and you'll even have the option of keeping the freeze files in case you want to freeze again, or to delete the files and just simply click unfreeze. Now for a MIDI track that's routed to an VST instrument in the VST instrument racks, you would come over here to the VST instrument rack from your devices menu or by hitting F11. You'll see this freeze icon right here, the little snowflake. So we'll freeze the instrument, and now that instrument has been frozen, and we can just simply undo the freeze as well. So this way we can have our tracks, we can still edit, go back, unfreeze, change MIDI information, and choose to refreeze it as well. Now we can also come over here and do some clever routing. So if I wanted to go to my VST connections, I could actually add a stereo bus, and I don't actually want to connect this bus to anywhere. It doesn't have to be connected, so I'm not actually limited by the available inputs and outputs on my audio interface. And we'll kind of consider it a phantom bus. Now I could also add a stereo group, and I could choose this to not be routed anywhere as well. So let's say I wanted to take my soft synth and my sub bass and I wanted to record these as audio. I could do some clever routing. So I'm going to add 2 audio tracks. And then we'll call this soft synth. And then we'll also call the second track sub bass. Now what I want to do is I'll select my soft synth track, and when I go to my channel settings, instead of having it being routed out to my main outputs, I'm going to send this to group 1. Now for my soft synth audio track, its input is coming from group 1. For my sub bass, I could choose this being routed out to stereo output 2. And for my sub bass audio channel, its input is coming from stereo out 2. So now, if I arm these tracks for recording, I'll come right here, place these into record, and now we'll see the instruments being recorded as the signal passes into the audio stream as audio tracks. This is also ideal for if you wanted to play a virtual instrument, record the MIDI information, and send the output of the audio being generated by the virtual instrument and record that simultaneously as audio into the project. Now we can also do different exporting tasks. So let's say I wanted to come here and we'll select all of the files, and then I'm going to hit the P key on my computer keyboard, and this will set my left and right locators around all of the events selected. Now if I wanted to take all of my tracks here and bounce it down into a stereo mix, I could go to my export, select audio mix down, and I'll say my stereo output, and we'll call this a VSTI mix 2. And I want this to be imported into the project, so I'm going to check, we'll import it into the audio pool and create an audio track. So I'll hit export. We'll hit OK. And now this is my stereo mix down of all of my different files. Now, when I come here, I could also do this individually. So if we have a large number of virtual instruments and I wanted to actually take all of my different tracks individually as audio files instead of compiling it all into one stereo mixdown, we could use the batch export feature. But let's say I have my drum machine here. We'll open this up, my Groove Agent 1, and when I play, I wanted to have the actual tracks go out of different outputs. So if I select my kick drum, that's stereo out 1, and stereo out 2 will be my snare, and stereo out 3 will be for my hi-hat. So if I go into my mixer, I could actually just simply come here, and I'm going to send these, if I want these all to be mono, I send these to a mono output. My other channels that I want to be stereo, I'll leave going to my stereo out. And for my synth and my bass. And now I'm going to go to my file menu and go to export, and we'll choose audio mixdown, and we're going to check the channel batch export. And now what I want to do is to have my instrument tracks, and my instrument tracks are routed to stereo outs, and I'll come right over here, and my instrument tracks will now be sent to stereo outs, and my VST instrument channels, my Groove Agent 1, 2, and 3 are routed to mono outputs. So those will actually be my kick, snare, and hi-hat as mono. And we're going to choose import it into the pool and import into audio track. And I'll hit export. It's now rendering the files. And we'll hit OK. And now it's automatically placed my stereo tracks here of my soft synth, my sub bass, my Groove Agent 1 kick drum, my snare drum, and also my hi-hat, all as rendered files. So whether you want to render your files by freezing them in the instrument track or the VST instrument rack, to be able to route them to phantom groups and outputs and record the audio input in real time back into audio tracks in Cubase, export all the tracks as audio files, or use the batch export. Cubase and Nuendo offer many features for incorporating your virtual instrument tracks and rendering them as audio and incorporating them directly into the main project window.